Welcome to If People Only Knew, the show that brings untold stories to light. I'm your host, Anna Matson. Let's get started. Welcome to this week's episode. Today, you get me and only me. I do not have a guest, and I hope that's enough for you. Now, this past year, I have gone to a Libertarian event. I just went this weekend. I have been to a Democratic event. I've been to 2 Republican events and 2 independent events, we're going to call it. I've been to 2 Kennedy events. And I want to tell you what I've learned. I always get asked, like, okay, like, what did you find out? What did people talk about? Like, walk us through some behind the scenes. And going to the Libertarian event, I really just confirmed what I had suspected. And, you know, I haven't been to a Green Party or a Forward Party, but I'm sure it's the same stuff. Okay. So I want to work backwards from what I've learned. Now, I'm going to tell you what I learned, a little bit about the event within each party. And then at the end, I'm going to tell you what I've learned from all of them. And I think you're going to be pretty shocked. Not really, but you're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm just putting it into words and we're all going to be like, yeah, that's what's going on here. So let's start out with this Libertarian event. It was a fundraiser. Me and my husband went. We dressed up. I made a video about it. We looked cute. It was great. Justin Amash was there. He is one of the best congressmen. He stopped being a congressman because he ran for Senate in Michigan. He did lose that race, but still, while he was in Congress, he was phenomenal. So I really wanted to meet him. So I got to meet him briefly. And also Larry Sharpe was there. He's a libertarian that ran for governor in New York. So Larry is a riot. And, you know, the event was interesting. I hate when events do not have enough seating. Okay, I had to wear 3-inch heels just to take some photos because I'm 5'2". I don't think people realize how short I am. And I just wanted to like look normal size in photos. And there were not enough chairs. So they started having speeches and I'm standing there in my heels and it was a room mainly full of guys. And I was kind of shocked that none of them were like, hey, would you like to sit down in my spot? Honestly, but that's just a me problem. Totally fine. So first, Larry Sharpe talked and he talked about the party and how we need to bring people into the party and stuff. I don't know. He's a riot. Like he does a lot of podcasting himself and stuff. So you can go listen to him. And then the head of the Libertarian Party talked. Honestly, I don't know his name. I should have looked it up before I hit record, but he's a new chair. And this is where things got interesting for me. I kind of grew up, I don't want to say I grew up in the church, but like I went to church for like half my childhood. And the things he started to talk about was exactly how a church talks. That's where I was like, whoa, okay. It just went from 0 to 100 really fast. So he talked about how he has friends or have talked to people in Russia that are libertarians and that they get jailed and fined for their beliefs. And he's like, we need to overcome that and, you know, just be able to rest easy and be able to sleep at night knowing that we have these beliefs and we're going to fight for them. And we need to recruit other people in and all like, I'm telling you, if you grew up in the church, it was exactly church talk. Like you need to have your beliefs. You need to be willing to be persecuted for them and all this stuff. And we need to bring more people into the fold. Okay. I am willing to be persecuted for my Lord. Probably not for a political party. I'm sorry, guys. That was just so extreme to me. And especially because I do believe that many political parties, if not every single one of them, has a cult following within the movement. I'm not saying the whole movement is a cult, but there are cult followings in every movement I've seen. So to have that kind of language, I just didn't like it. I didn't appreciate it. And I think it's very dangerous, actually. Like, to me, politics needs to be a business transaction and that alone. Now, that was that. Then Justin Amash talked. He talked about how the party's donors are going down and we need to recruit people. Now, I will say, this is one thing that separates the Libertarian Party, I think, from any other party, I would say. Maybe independents are good in this realm as well. But libertarians that was the first time I've really heard a party talk about bringing other people who are not libertarians in. I did not hear this from the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. They're very much like, these are our beliefs. Everyone else is stupid. They're dangerous. They're a threat to democracy. So it was nice to hear a change where it was like, okay, we actually want to bring more people into the fold. Now, if you don't know anything about libertarians, it's because they have horrible messaging. And I actually talked to Larry Sharp about this because I always thought, as much as I'm involved in politics, I always thought libertarians were basically Republicans that actually follow through on their word. But they started talking about how libertarians are actually very liberal, but they just don't believe the government should do things. Like they think that we should have people helping the poor and stuff like that. They just don't believe that's the government's role. I don't know. I think libertarians really need to get their messaging down. I don't think they even know what they are. I'm sure I'm going to have libertarians fighting with me about this, but that's fine. And I did witness a libertarian fight right in front of me. I was told the first time I even talked to a libertarian, they were like, yeah, there's like this old joke where there's like two libertarians at a bar fighting and they're still there today. That's what libertarians are known for. They fight all the time. And I was talking with Larry Sharp and then someone came up and they literally just had a full blown fight right in front of me and my husband. And we didn't really know what was going on. We were like, how did we get here? Like we were talking about one thing and then it just exploded. And I'm like telling them, I'm like, you guys need to stop. Okay. Like this is supposed to be a nice night. I know I went to a political event, but I actually didn't want to talk about politics. But, you know, obviously it was political. And I'm just like, okay, can we stop? And they are just fighting over me talking. And I'm like, guys, stop right now. Stop. And they just kept talking over me. But finally I got them to calm down. And yeah, so that was fun. That was fun to witness firsthand the libertarian fighting. Yeah, we'll talk more about this later, the fighting, because it happens in a lot of political parties, a lot of political movements. But I'm going to talk more about that at the end. Okay, so now let's go to the last event I went to was a Republican fundraiser. I kind of like snuck in, not really. I know the owner of the venue and I was like, hey, can I get in for free? And he was like, bring your camera and be my photographer and you'll get in. So that's what I did. And there was like a lot of big Republicans there, the Michigan party chair and candidates running for governor, stuff like that. Yeah, there was staff and volunteers who were rude. There were staff and volunteers who were nice. Lots of drinking. That's something common among them all. The Democratic event didn't have alcohol because it was a town hall. But other than that, lots of drinking. But I don't think that's, that's because of politics. I think it's just, very cultural. No matter what event you go to, really, there's so much drinking. And me and my husband don't drink. So that's why I just always kind of notice it right away. I'm like, wow, like none of these people can like do anything without a drink in their hand. Very interesting. So I actually was shocked at the Republican fundraiser that it wasn't so extreme. We see it online all the time, these crazy left lunatics and, all that kind of language. Well, there wasn't much of it at the event. There was one or two times where there was a speaker that said, these crazy left policies, but it wasn't like their whole personality. They just talked about how we want to make America better. Like we want to cut wasteful spending and we want to, improve crime rates and all this stuff. It was just about like what we want to do and how we get there. It wasn't much talking about the other side. But I will say, it's kind of just assumed at these events that you are one of them. As an independent myself going into these events, I'm like, maybe they can sway me. Like, shouldn't they try to talk to me as the independent voter? But that's not what these events really are. Even rallies and stuff. Like they all just assume you're on their side, which is unfortunate because I really feel like people should go to town halls and should go to rallies with an open mind to see if they can be persuaded, on their team. But that's not what's happening. They walk in and just assume like we're all here together, like we're all Republicans, we're all Democrats, and everyone else is against us. But there's not like talking about, okay, can we bring other people into the fold? Other than, like I said, the Libertarian Party did talk about, bringing more people in. So that was a win for them. But again, at the event, they just assumed everyone in that room was Libertarian. And I actually, told some of the speakers before I went, I'm like, hey, do you have to be part of the Libertarian Party to go? And they were like, no, not at all. So they knew at least one person, was not actually Libertarian that was there. So I don't know, just a thought, But getting back to more of the Republican event, I mean, that really was it. I mean, there wasn't much else. The elected officials were very kind themselves. It was just some of the volunteers and stuff, like I said, were rude. And it could just be because I was the photographer there, a photographer, and a lot of people are very rude to photographers, kind of one of the reasons why I kind of got out of being a photographer, because people just look down on it and say, oh, all you do is just take a few photos. Like, what kind of skill do you have to have for that? And all that stuff. So it could have just been because I had a camera in my hand, not necessarily because they're rude to everybody. But I will say there was one guy at the front, like where he was checking people in. This, again, is at the Republican event. And there was a veteran checking in, and he had his hat on. And the guy goes right to this guy's face. He goes, "Oh, you're a veteran. That'll make a great photo." And he goes, photographer over here. So two things wrong right there. First of all, you're just going to like say the quiet part out loud. You're just going to be like, oh, you're a veteran. That'll make a great photo. Like, not because you actually like care that he's a veteran and you're not going to thank him for a service or anything. You just want to use him for a photo op. And second of all, calling me over like photographer. Wow. Like, you couldn't just be like, hey, like, do you mind taking a photo of us? And I would have been more than happy to. It's just, yeah. But again, a lot of people do that kind of stuff. That was at the Republican event, but I think Democrats do that stuff too, guys. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the Republican event. I did go to a Trump rally in the summer as well. Now, my husband, this was like a week, I believe it was within a week that Kennedy dropped out and joined Team Trump. And my husband wore a Kennedy shirt. One person made the comment like, oh, Kennedy? I mean, I guess he's on our side now. And that was it. I mean, it wasn't horrible by any means, but whatever. And then there was another person, he was like in line to get water. And there was another person that was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so excited Kennedy's on our team. Like, do you feel welcome? And it was like a great conversation. But other than that, I mean, we stood in line for like 3 hours. And those were the only comments about like his shirt or anything. But definitely a lot of personalities. I don't remember hearing a lot of like talk about, oh, those crazy left lunatics. I didn't hear stuff like that really. People just kind of hung out to themselves while we were in line. Anyway, so that was that event. I think that kind of summarizes the Republican events I went to. Now, let's go to the Democratic event I went to recently. I believe this was 2 months ago, a month or two ago. There was a town hall in John James District. He is a House of Representative. Apparently, I have not confirmed this yet. I should have before I hit record again. But a lot of people say that he actually moved to the other side of the state, which is wild to me, that you are going to move outside your district. Wowza. Apparently because he's running for governor now. So maybe it has something to do with his run, but I think it's disrespectful to not be in your own district. Obviously, Democrats thought that too. So they made a whole event about it. So it was supposed to be like this whole town hall. And it was all about, where's John James, and there was Chris Murphy who showed up. I forgot, he's a senator. I can't remember off the top of my head what state he represents, but he's a senator from another state. So he flew in. Okay. And then there was a congressman from Florida that flew in, just big mouths, in the party. And I was like, I was shocked because they're sitting here saying, like, where's John James? He can't even show up for his own district. And yet they fly people in from other districts. Like, you couldn't get like more Michigan Democrats to show up. Like, I don't understand. Like, shouldn't these representatives be in their own district holding town halls for their own people? So there was like a little bit of hypocrisy there, if you get it. Now, the big difference with the Democratic event was that it was very divisive. Very divisive. It was all talk about Republicans. Like, how could they this? How could they that? At the beginning of the event, they even had someone with a giant Trump head come out and everyone's booing and all this stuff. And again, no one trying to like bring people in, not like, if you're a Republican here, join our side. Nothing like that. It was, we're Democrats, everyone else is against us. Like, they're a threat to democracy. And the Attorney General for Michigan was there. So they had one Michigan representative. And she did say, like, Trump is going outside his bounds. We're going to protect Michiganders, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the rest of it was all propaganda. It was all the same stuff we hear online. That's what I liked about the Republican event a little bit, is that it wasn't just the same old that you see online, the propaganda, the talking points. It was actually like different conversations. So that was nice. Democrats, it was exactly what you see online. They're coming after your Medicaid. They're doing this. They're doing that. Like, they're not following due process. They're, all the things that you see online is exactly what they said in the event. And again, they just assumed everyone was Democrat there and everyone not in that room is against us. Now, for a town hall, they didn't have any unscripted questions. And I wrote a really nice question. I said, I'm an independent. Like, a lot of Democrats are now saying that they're moderate to win the independent vote over, but they're not actually doing anything that's moderate. So what do you say to an independent like me to win over my vote? I thought that was a good question, but they didn't take it. It was very, very clear that they had like 5 questions, all pre-planned. And I know this because the first one, this guy had a giant like graph or whatever. And I highly doubt this dude just walked in with it unplanned and they so happened to pick him out of a box. Like, come on. So definitely pre-planned. It was about, it was mainly Medicaid. It was like, I'm terrified that my Medicaid, my Medicare is going to go away. And they're like, we're not going to let it happen. We're going to do everything we can for you. And yet there's not any evidence that anyone's Medicaid and Medicare has been cut. Social Security. There has not been proof that any of that has been cut. Oh, and that's the other thing they kept repeating, is that they just want to give tax cuts to the billionaires. Again, everything you see online was exactly what they talked about. Okay. That was the Democratic event. Now from there, okay, now we're going to go to my favorite ones. We are going to talk about independent events. The first one is kind of a cheat because the first Kennedy event I went to was RFK Jr., but he was still a Democrat at the time, but it was a week before he was going to announce being independent. So there was already news articles saying, he's probably going to do this. We knew an announcement was coming out the next couple days in Pennsylvania. So we pretty much knew already that he was going to be an independent. So I am cheating a little bit and saying that this is an independent event. That one was my favorite event to go to. It really was. And obviously I'm biased because I'm an independent, but I really truly do go into these events with an open mind. I really do. And I want to hear people out. I love meeting new people. I love just having conversations. That's why I love my show so much, just to sit down with people and have in-depth conversations. Not everything has to be clickbait, you know? And, the first Kennedy event I went to, I was like, these are not people. Okay. And there were people there that disagreed with Kennedy. They actually came just to talk about how Trump is better than Kennedy. And yet I was still able to have conversations with these people. And it was fine. Like, it didn't turn into a screaming match or anything like that. And I remember I sat down next to this one guy, and he's like, Kennedy's rumored to turn independent. Like, how do you think about that? And I was like, I'm really nervous he's not going to win as an independent. And he was like, really? Like, I really think this is the time. Like, everything he's talking about, it just is so good. Like, I really think we can do this. And he was so full of hope. And that truly inspired me the rest of Kennedy's campaign, just talking to that one person. And I'm like, man, like, these are just normal people. And like, so many people got into the independent movement, the Kennedy movement, because we just don't want our food poisoning us. We don't want a corrupt government. And that first Kennedy event, I'll never forget it. And I made a really, really good friend that I'm still in contact with today. And yeah, it was awesome. And like I said, there were still people there who disagreed, and I was able to still have a conversation with them. Okay. I think I went to like 2, maybe 3 Kennedy events. Actually, I went to another event he did too. It was like 2 days in a row. I went to each one, but regardless. Now, later on, a few months later, it was like a comedy night. And I went there. I didn't really mingle with a lot of people, honestly. I was kind of in and out because there was like the comedy event happened at one place, and then there were taking photos and stuff at another location. It was in the middle of winter. Honestly, I didn't really talk to many people. But if you guys know me, I'm very much ingrained in the Maha movement at this point. So I don't need to go to an event to know what's going on with the movement. From the start to now, the Kennedy independent Maha is just so different today than it was. And as I talk about this is really what I've learned. Like, now I told you a little bit about each event, right? Now we're kind of summarizing what I've learned from going to all of these events. So I believe this is what happened with the Libertarian Party. And honestly, probably the Republican and Democrat Party, they're very old, so I don't know for sure, but but this is what I've seen firsthand. We started out with a beautiful independent movement where people came in for the right reasons. They came in with good intentions. They're like, I just want my government to not be corrupt. I want my food to stop poisoning me. I just want to, protect our farmers. I want better education. I want better science, all those things. And it was just normal people that showed up. And over time, grifters and egos have completely taken over the movement. And this has been so dangerous because now so many of those everyday people like me and you have been so upset with how things are turning out that a lot of my Kennedy people that I call friends, they are like, I'm done. And they are checking out. So now the grifters and the egos remain, and the good, everyday, hardworking person, they're all getting checked out. And what do I mean by egos and grifters? Well, grifters, everyone is trying to make money somehow, which it's not always a bad thing, but it can be. I always say money is not a bad thing, but the love of money is a bad thing. So that's what's happening. So, people saw an opportunity in Maha to make a quick buck. So they snuck in as leaders of the movement and started a lot of internal fighting. And then the egos, even people who are not necessarily in it for the money, a lot of people are in it for the recognition. It's not enough for a policy or a change to happen. It's not enough for change. They need to be credited for that change. Everyone around them needs to say, that person did it. You got us out of that mess. It's not enough unless they get the credit. And this has caused so much tension in Maha that it's just breaking the movement apart. It's slowing political momentum, which is really important because, like, if we have a policy that we want to get through Congress and get the president to sign, we need a lot of people to be calling their representatives and stuff. We need everyday people. But if you're grifting and if you have an ego and you're making people drop out of the movement, well, then we don't have as much power that we used to. Okay, so that's why it's a problem. We need to bring more people into politics, not drive them away. Now, with my talk at the Libertarian Event, it sounds like that's exactly what happened with the Libertarian Party years back as well. So that's why I know from experience with the Maha movement that happened, but it sounds like it's also happened with other political parties as well. And with that, there has been so much fighting. There is so much fighting that comes from these egos and the grifters because, again, everyone's at battle with each other. In the Maha movement, it's vaccines versus food. Which one's more important? And it's like, then there's people like me that are like, guys, they're both important. And they're like, no, I'm right. They're wrong. And oh my gosh, it's such a mess. And that's why libertarians are known for always fighting, never actually solving anything. And it is a great thing to disagree. I think that is what the Republican Party and the Democrat Party have completely lost, is that they cannot disagree within their own party. If you disagree, they get kicked out. Kennedy disagreed with Democrats, you're out. Tulsi Gabbard, you're out. Republican Party, Thomas Massie, you disagree with Trump's big, beautiful bill, so you're out. Like, you need to be primaried. That's what happens within these parties. And I guess that's kind of how they survived, is they just stick to their values and no one's allowed to question it, which I also think is dangerous. I don't think that's what the founding fathers had intended. And then the other parties that actually do disagree, they disagree so much that nothing gets done. And I always quote to this, and I'm going to read it for you, parts of it. Benjamin Franklin, he had a closing speech at the Constitutional Convention. So right before everyone signed the Constitution, he made this speech. And I'm going to read parts of it. I highly recommend you go and read the whole thing. So before he signs, he stands up and he says, "I confess that I do not entirely approve of this Constitution at present, but sir, I am not sure I shall never approve of it. For having lived long, I have experienced many instances of being obliged by better information or fuller consideration to change opinions, even on important subjects, which I thought right, but found to be otherwise. It is therefore that the older I grow, the more apt I am to doubt my own judgment and to pay more respect to the judgment of others." Wow. He's like, I don't know if this Constitution is perfect. I may change my mind one day because I make mistakes and I've changed my opinion before. And I hear everyone else, they say this is great, and I'm going to listen to what other people have to say too. I'm going to hear people out. Can you imagine if our elected officials had that mindset today? Wowza. And he says, "Most men indeed, as well as most sects and religion, think themselves in possession of all truth, and that wherever others differ from them, it is so far error." Yeah. He's saying, again, kind of like what I talked about at the Democrat event, where it's like, if you don't agree with us, you're out. Like, we don't want to hear you. You're the enemy. And he's saying that's religion. It's not politics. And he goes on to say, In these sentiments, sir, I agree to this Constitution with all of its faults, if they are such, because I think a general government necessary for us. One of my favorite phrases, I even used this back in high school art class and everything. It's perfectly imperfect. He's saying, with all of its faults, like we're imperfect men, and yet we came up with this imperfect Constitution. It's imperfectly perfect. He says, I doubt too whether any other convention we can obtain may be able to make a better Constitution. For when you assemble a number of men to have the advantage of their joint wisdom, you inevitably assemble with those men all of their prejudices, their passions, their errors of opinion, their local interests, their selfish views. Again, imperfect men coming together to make a perfectly imperfect Constitution. It's really beautiful. From such an assembly, can a perfect production be expected? It therefore astonishes me, sir, to find this system approaching so near to perfection as it does. And I think it will astonish our enemies who are waiting with confidence to hear that our counsels are confounded. Oh, man. Thus, I consent, sir, to this Constitution because I expect no better, and because I am not sure that it is not the best. The opinions I have had of its errors, I sacrifice to the public good. Imagine that. Imagine if, these movements like libertarians, independents, they just at some point in the fighting, they stopped and said, the opinions I have had of its errors, I sacrifice for the public good. So I'm going to stop badgering my questions. I think we've negotiated down as best we can. And the rest of my reservations, I think it's for the public interest for me to put the rest aside and just be happy with the progress we did make. Imagine that was a thought process. I mean, really, I feel like the goal should be, are we better off today than we were yesterday? And some people, in their mind, they just don't want to settle unless we're at the best of the best. And it's like, okay, that is not reality. You are not going to accomplish your agenda. Everyone says that, or their mandate, the Republican mandate, Trump's mandate, whatever. It's not all going to happen in a day. So can we do something today that will make us better yesterday? In Maha, okay, we got rid of some food dyes and approved some natural food dyes. Okay, we're better today than we were yesterday. Is it everything? Some people will not be happy unless everything is accomplished. And it's like, okay, can we celebrate the small wins? Okay, getting back to it. I have never whispered a syllable of them abroad. Within these walls they were born, and here they shall die. If every one of us, in returning to our constituents, were to report the objections he has had to it and endeavor to gain partisans in support of them, we might prevent it being generally received. So he's saying, listen, the Constitution, if we do not go out, we signed the Constitution, founding fathers, right? If we go out back to our districts and start talking shit about the Constitution, then people are not going to respect it, especially our enemies and even our own citizens. So we need to, we've done all the debate. We spent the whole summer creating this Constitution. And while it may have faults, can you really expect anything better from all of these imperfect people? So now what needs to be done is we need to put aside our own selfish interest and we need to do what's best for the public. We need to sign it and we need to go out as a united front. I'm telling you, how many lessons can be learned in just this one speech? It is so beautiful. I hope every libertarian, every Maha person goes and reads it because it just explains so much. And we would be in such a better position today if we took the wise words of Benjamin Franklin to heart. Okay, long explanation on what I learned at these events. So that's one thing, is I learned that A lot of the grifters and the egos have taken over a lot of the political events, and it makes a lot of people, just kind of get out of politics or over it. They come in with good intentions, and there's still well-intended people in the movements, don't get me wrong. But there's also a lot of people that have just got out of it. So that's one thing. The other thing is that a lot of other than Republican, Democrat, I guess, but all the other indie political parties that show up, they just fight so much that nothing gets done. My words of wisdom are really the wisdom of Benjamin Franklin. And the other thing I learned going to all these events is that there are so many middle-aged and old men in politics. And is that really representative of the population? It really kills me. I am probably the youngest one at all of these events. And by far. There's not many young people at these events. And we need to change that, guys. Seriously. We need more women involved in politics. We need more young people in politics. Because we can't expect, the old and the middle-aged man is not representative of the whole population. And what kills me about us young people letting the older generations make decisions is that these policies that they pass really are not going to affect their life. They take years to really see the fruits of whatever the decision was, the policy. So we are going to be impacted, us younger people are going to be impacted by the decisions that these old people are making. And I'm not ageist. I think it's absolutely beautiful, the wisdom of the old and the fire of the young. But right now there's not a balance. And that's what gets me. At every single one of these events, I see it. So I really hope I can inspire other young people and females to get involved in politics because they're not going to represent us. We need to represent us. I always say, no one's going to save you. No one's going to come save you. You need to save you. We need to save ourselves. So if we actually want policies that's going to benefit our lives, we need to get involved. And that could be easily at your local level. You can go to local meetings. I go to my local meetings all the time. And if you have questions on how to get involved in your local government, please ask me. Drop a comment, and I will be happy to help you out. I will literally tell me what town, if you private message me, tell me what town you live in and say, I want to get involved. I will look it up for you because I'm so passionate about this stuff. So anything I can do to help, that's why I started doing what I do, because I want to educate people to get involved in government so we can make government work for us. Anyway, that's what I learned. Thank you so much for watching, listening to this week's episode. And I have so many more incredible episodes coming up. So make sure you're following, subscribing, all the things. Episodes drop every Wednesday. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.